Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the May 5th, 2025 meeting. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge the Coast Salish people, specifically the Shiano First Nations, on whose territory this district of Metchosin building exists, and our neighbors, the Sook Nation. This is particularly so today on May 5th, since 2010, when we bear witness and acknowledge Red Dress Day. And this annual event is held by the Red Dress Project in memory of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls across Canada. And we want to honor and bring awareness to Indigenous women, girls, and two-spirited people who have gone missing throughout our land. Okay, with that, let's begin our meeting. We've got an agenda before you, Council. If there's no additions, I'll take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Gray, second by Councillor Shukin. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. We've got two presentations this evening. First of all, Mr. Lowry, Michael Lowry, the Senior Manager for the Western Canada Marine Response Corporation, or WCMRC, Spill Response and Local Operations. Welcome again.
Where's this one?
There we are.
There we go. Is that better? Yeah, thank you for the invitation. Again, I think it's our second or third time presenting to Mayor and Council here, going back probably 8 or 9 years. The District of Metchosin has been an excellent partner in working on spill response and helping us improve our programs over the years. So we truly appreciate that. This presentation came out of a exercise that we did about a couple months ago that Councillor Gray attended, and we offered to do an update now that our base in Beecher Bay is up and running. So I have 10 minutes today, so we'll go through stuff relatively quickly. A couple slides. We'll try to keep the overview of WCMRC quite limited because I think folks understand us now. But I'll talk a little bit about us and then a little bit about our base in Beecher Bay and what assets that we have there, and then some other initiatives that are happening around in the spill response sector as well. So for those that aren't aware, we recently went through a large expansion. We've gone and basically doubled the size of our organization in the last 5 or 6 years. We've added bases in Vancouver and Fraser River, but more importantly, we've added bases here on the island. So Sydney is a new base, along with Beecher Bay is a new base. We also have bases in Nanaimo and Port Alberni. And we had for a long time, we had a base up in Prince Rupert. So here's a picture from last August when we had the ribbon cutting and opening of the Beecher Bay base. And we are hoping to do an open house later this fall. And so Mayor and Council and the community will get invitations to come to that event. So you'll see some of these assets in person. But in case you can't come and see us, I've got a couple of pictures of what the base looks like here coming up. So in terms of the capacity at that particular base, we have 20 full-time personnel, so full-time spill responders that work out of that base. We have a complement of 9 vessels, including an oil spill response vessel and a coastal response vessel. We have 3,000 plus meters of boom, which is about 10,000 feet of boom at that particular base. So here's the office and warehouse that was built. And then here's the moorage where those vessels are stationed. So I'll quickly go through what those vessels do and how they operate. This is an oil spill response vessel. This is basically the fire engine of a fleet. This is the vessel that is purpose built to do cleanup. So when it transforms into this new mode here, it can actually bring in oil. So the trapdoors have opened up on the side of the hull there. So the oil can actually come through, is in those chambers, and then is picked up by skimming brushes on board. So this is how the oil is actually cleaned up. This is a landing craft, which is one of our bigger landing craft that we also have at Beecher Bay. Very useful built boat for getting equipment to and from beaches and remote locations. This is a coastal response boat. So one of the things that we looked at when we did our expansion was one of the gaps we had were vessels that can't handle heavier weather on the coast. And so this isn't a go fast boat like the oil spill response vessel. It's sort of a more slow, steady boat, but can handle heavier weather than some of our other assets. And then lastly, this is the offshore supply vessel. So this was the last vessel that we brought into the fleet. It is the largest oil spill response vessel in Canada, and it's the only vessel that wasn't a new build. So these are offshore supply vessels are typically used to service the offshore oil industry. We don't have that industry in BC, but they've proven to be very useful for spill response because not only can they handle heavy weather, they've also got capacity to store oil on board as well. So it's a very useful piece of equipment, and it is stationed and staffed 24/7 at Beecher Bay. We also made a point of retaining its firefighting capacity and its emergency towing capacity. Okay, and that'll become important a little bit later on. But if you recall, there was a Zim Kingston incident a number of years ago, and there's a lot of talk about, well, we just happened to have some tugs from the States here that were able to put it out. Now this asset would be there as well. So this could work in a situation where we had another fire. We've also looked at installing equipment not exactly at the base. So we do have some boom in these two sea cans. Each can has about 1,700 feet of boom, and these are stored at Whiff and Spit in Souk. And the model here is that even though we do have a lot of assets at Beecher Bay, if we did have a large spill, we'd be looking for others to help out as well. So we train contractors that would be able to access that equipment, that boom, and do shoreline protection in addition to our own assets. So here's a picture of us training folks from the Shaanu Nation and the Sauk Nation. And we've also trained the RCMSAR, actually, that are in Souk as well. We've got a program that looks at protecting sensitivities along the coastline. So these could be environmental, cultural, or socioeconomic. And so this is a snapshot from our public portal no show all the areas that we've got protection strategies for within the area of Metchosin. Now, we have done some in-depth workshops with staff from the District of Metchosin on the coastal response program. But just if you're not really familiar with what a coastal protection strategy looks like, here's a picture from Whitty's Lagoon, and that shows where we'd be deploying protection to protect that particular asset. So the last two things I want to talk about is we talked a lot about our capacity. We are by far not the only response partners in a big spill. So the Canadian Coast Guard, after the Marathassah, which was the spill in English Bay, realized that it was important to integrate communities into response planning. And so there's a plan that applies to this area. It's the one if you can integrate a response plan. And there's some key local partners. Sauk Nation is part of that. The District of Metchosin is part of that. So all these groups and communities sit on that regional plan and are part of those working groups. And finally, just some forward-looking stuff. The Canadian government's proposed some changes to the Canadian response regime. And they're looking at requiring that large vessels have towing capacity contracted before they come into our waters, firefighting capacity, along with salvage. So this is to prevent another Zim Kingston type incident. They're also looking at adding H&S. So pretty much any kind of pollution that could enter the water that's not oil, they'd be adding an H&S structure to that. And so, go ahead. Oh, sorry, hazardous and noxious substances. So LNG, for example, would fall under that. We're also seeing vessels powered by methanol and ammonia. So that would fall under that as well. So that's the extent of my presentation. Happy to take any questions from Mayor and Council or from the room.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Michael. Questions for Mr. Lowry? Go ahead, Councillor Shukin.
Through you, Mayor Little. Thank you, Mr. Lowry, for your presentation. Just a few random questions.
Sure.
What is your annual operating budget for the entire fleet?
Yeah, so we've grown quite a bit. I think we're in the $70 million range now. And so in Canada, it's a polluter pay model. So industry must fund response organizations. Yeah. A lot of this growth was a commitment that Trans Mountain made to the federal government. So they funded a lot of that expansion. And a lot of the volumes that their company pays go to fund these enhancements. So it's industry funded. A lot of it comes from oil, but a lot of it comes from shipping as well.
Okay, yeah. Great. Thank you. Another question. I haven't had the privilege of attending some of the drills you put on. So maybe I'm asking a question that some of my colleagues already know the answer to, but there was some concern locally about the ability of a spill response in bad weather or high winds. And I guess I'm interested to know if you have done any real-time drills to see how your fleet could respond in bad weather.
Yeah, I mean, think of oil spill response just like you think of fighting wildfires, right? Weather is going to play a huge role. So if it's too dangerous for us to be out there, then we're not going to be out there if it's too dangerous for our staff. The other thing to look at is the equipment limitations of booms and skimmers. There's a certain threshold that those will work in and which they don't become effective in. So we do train in all manner of environments. One thing I would point to is that we had a relatively long response up in Bella Bella. It was about 3 or 4 months that we were, maybe 2 or 3 months that we were there. And there were days where we had to be stood down because of weather, and you can imagine the Central Coast. There was about 2 or 3 of those days throughout the operation. So yes, we can be stood down because of bad weather. It is a reality of spill response.
Thanks. Through the chair, Michael, how many tankers are we going by now every day or the week?
So the whole traffic, I couldn't tell you, Councillor Gray. I do know that the Trans Mountain traffic has increased from about maybe 1 a week to about 1 a day. We do get a lot of traffic going past these waters here, including Canadian tankers and American tankers, but also a lot of traffic from cargo ships, container ships. This is an international waterway. Both Canadian and American ships travel through this water. I don't have figures for exactly how many deep sea vessels pass here every day.
And I wonder then, you would respond to all of those you've just listed?
Yes.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter who the owners are? Or
Correct.
like that.
Correct. So the way the law works in Canada is that any vessel over 400 gross tons does not matter the purpose of that vessel. By law, they must have a contract with a Transport Canada Certified Response Organization, and so that is our organization.
Do you have a third question, Councillor Gray?
I do, but if someone else wants to jump in.
Go ahead, and then Councillor Shukin. Go ahead, Councillor Gray, and then Councillor Shukin.
Sure. I was just wondering about the coordination. So thanks so much for putting us up there in terms of a partner. So who are you partnering with in Metchosin? Is it the fire department or with the district administration?
Yeah, we've done a lot of work with your fire department. They've come down and worked with us. Some of their volunteer staff have actually been trained in spill response. They've also come down and supported us with fire response as well. So it's a very active relationship going back many years.
So when we met, whatever it was, a month ago or so, I learned, and Councillor F was there as well, that the WCMRC is going to take care of, or do their best to take care of a spill on the water. And I was encouraged here, if the diluted bitumen or the oil or whatever the product is hits the shoreline, that you're also in charge of that. Is that so, or is the province, or what role does Metchosin have in that circumstance where we get a big load of oil onto the shoreline?
Yeah, we are certainly responsible for the shoreline cleanup as well. So we do the cleanup on the water, which is the first priority, to remove it on the water before it can contaminate further on the shoreline, and then also the shoreline as well. We can also do the protection strategies we talked about here. We're also responsible for hazing of wildlife. But if you're concerned about the overall roles and responsibilities of response, I would encourage you to review the Wanafika plan, that the entire intent of that plan, and there are other of these. There's one for Vancouver, there's one for the Georgia Strait, there's one for the west side of Vancouver Island. The entire intent was to lay out the roles and responsibilities, both of industry, of municipalities, of the federal government, of the province. So that is the entire intent of that particular document. So yeah, if we do have a requirement to do cleanup on the beach as well.
Thank you.
Councillor Shukin.
Councillor Gray hit my question, so thank you. Good.
When I was out at Beecher Bay recently, I saw the offshore supply vessel at the very end there. It's absolutely massive. Does it move a lot? Is it what is it used for on a day-to-day basis or week-to-week basis?
Yeah, we did have some concerns about what that crew would be doing if it wasn't, obviously it's not responding to big spills all the time. One of the things they have been doing quite a bit of is backup escorts. So the company that operates that vessel on our behalf, it is a WCMRC vessel, but we didn't have the expertise to manage a large vessel, so we brought in Kotug to do that. They also won the contract to bring in 2 new escort tugs, which is a requirement of the Trans Mountain Line, and those new escorts will run from Beecher Bay out to J-Boy. But the new Kotug vessels were not ready in time, so there's some smaller tugs that are doing it, but because our vessel can handle heavier weather, it's been called out quite a bit to do escort duty up to J-Boy. So it's been doing a lot of that work. But we do a lot of training with them as well.
Okay, good. Councillor Ray.
So through the chair, Mr. Lowry, the other thing I was wondering about was the question that Councillor Shukin raised about bad weather and can't get out. I think it's 40% of the time that you can't respond to a spill in the worst weather when we expect spills to happen. So we've written the provincial government a number of times asking them to talk to Transport Canada about this. Has any adjustments been made, like bad weather where we can't respond to a spill? Are they holding some of the shipping back until the weather's better? Anything going on in that regard for the safety and preservation of our coastline?
You're asking if they've paused shipping, international shipping through Metchosin territory? Yeah, I mean, what was the response from the province? I haven't heard anything, but did the province respond to you?
We've had a few different letters back, and I think most of it is looking into it. It's really the federal government, I think, who make that determination. Correct. And I'm just curious if you've heard anything in that regard.
No, of course, no. I've not. We're not responsible for the shipping lanes that pass through here. But you are right. I mean, it's not a it's not a provincial thing. It is a federal thing. So if you're looking to anyone to be Transport Canada, so those would be the folks I'd be addressing your letters to. And have they responded, or has it just been the province that's been responding?
I think council made a decision just to write to the province and
right.
Didn't want to write to the federal government. But we did, our largest response was on the health impacts. And it looks like the province is taking that quite seriously because of our inability to respond, particularly in the populated centers, if there were to be a spill, for the deleterious effects on the health of the population. I think we were thinking it would be the kind of a public health emergency we've never seen before.
Right. And I'm sorry, your
so
inability to respond, what do you mean by that?
Sorry?
You said our inability to respond. What did you mean by that?
I think I was referring to the health impacts are difficult to respond to.
Oh, I see.
I'm not sure. So that was just answering your question about the biggest response we've got is about that. And then saying, yeah, we're really in trouble about that and trying to figure it out with the public health officer and the public health staff in the province. But we haven't had an update on that. But theirs was, I think they met our concerns head on and said, yeah, this is a very big problem for us. They weren't referring to a spill off Metchosin with a light population, but my expectation of the modeling that we looked at from Vancouver through the provincial environmental assessment office was to say modeling it here, we would presumably need to evacuate Metchosin in a situation of spill here. Can I ask just another question? We had worked a little bit with you on the question of the special sites to protect, and maybe we could put that slide up again. Sure. There it was. So we've hit a lot of important places there. I wonder if we might gather again. We had a few people from the Environment Advisory Committee of Council and some people from WCMRC, and we never met to sort of go over the final product. But if we might do that, I think it would be helpful to us.
Yeah, more than happy to do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think you're referring to the meeting we had with Michael Campbell and his group
out at Beecher Bay.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, no, I'm more than happy to. This is certainly an evergreen program for us. These are tested on an annual basis, whether it's our folks or contractors that are testing these strategies, and we're constantly adding and subtracting. The blue dots that you see there are what we call our on-water strategies, and the reason they're there is there's some areas of the coast that even if we know is sensitive, we just simply can't protect, whether it's exposed, there's too much rock or whatever it is. So not every area that we're made aware of that needs protecting necessarily can have operation and protection strategies. So we're always happy to revisit those conversations. That's great.
Thank you. I think that would be a good idea. It's recognizing that we're not actually capable of protecting the shoreline here in the spill, but we're trying to identify areas that, golly, if we possibly could do something, we'd like to do it. But I would just like to confirm the list that we provided through the committee. If we haven't been able to hit some of the spots, what's going on there. That'd be good. You mentioned hazing as well. That's something where you scare away the animals?
Correct. Yeah.
And that's set up as part of your duties?
Correct. Yeah.
I think that's all I have for today. Thank you.
Okay. Other members of council, do you have any questions for Mr. Lowry? Councillor Donaldson.
No, thank you. I don't have any questions, but I appreciate you coming tonight. And I think the last time I saw you was probably last term or early this term. So a lot of changes. And I know we were just up at a big convention in Nanaimo, and there's that one of the big vessels up there as well. So it's good to see that up and down the coast now. So much appreciate the work and the report tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I mean, I will close by saying that I appreciate the concerns that the district has brought forward. But I will say that you guys are extremely well protected as well as you possibly can. You have the base that's located quite close by. You have, one of the biggest spill response vessels in Canada, as I mentioned, but you have a very active, fire department that's been engaging with our folks. Michael Campbell, who we've trained as a contractor, as a volunteer firefighter, he works with Beecher Way. We work with him on a very regular basis. And you've got equipment stations, nearby as well. So, we're certainly, we take our duty to protect this area very seriously, and happy to meet with you folks anytime.
Okay, thank you. We look forward to the hard launch of the building.
All right.
Great.
Yeah, and we'll invite you to the open house, of course.
Super. Thank you very much. Okay, next we have Councillor Shelley Donaldson of Metchosin Grown Society, License of Occupation Leased Area.
Did you want me to go to the podium?
Either podium or there, whatever you feel most comfortable.
Okay, well, I'll do it here as I got a working mic. Okay, so a very brief presentation. There's just the one slide up, which is also in our agenda package. So I'm speaking on behalf of the Metchosin Grown Society, which is the community garden, give a little bit of an update. The society is now a registered bona fide society with BC Registry as of last summer. They have been busy eradicating some invasive species and clearing all of the brambles out of what used to be a swing park from the school days of Metchosin School. They're currently working with the district to put together a license of occupation, which is what this topic is about tonight. But a little bit more about what they are. Their vision is to create a welcoming, inclusive, and sustainable community garden that supports local food security, outdoor education, and social connection. The garden will be a place for residents of all ages to grow food, share knowledge, and connect with the land and each other. Over the past 2 years, a dedicated group of volunteers have been working steadily at the site and preparing the ground for the anticipation of growing or creating a thriving and productive garden. It's not a large area. It is approximately, in the yellow dotted line there, that is approximately 64 by 55. So this is one of the things that is in the agenda package tonight to expand on that. And I'll list a couple of reasons here. The license will, but to back up a bit, the license will be to provide a formal foundation for them to begin installing infrastructure where the dotted lines are, and be able to start launching community programming on the site as well as growing. Now, this is something that they're going to be doing over time and into the future. There's still a lot of improvements that need to be made now that we've got the brambles out of the way. There's still a lot of pea gravel there, and so they'll have to find ways to remediate that. That allows for some good drainage, but there's not a lot of soil in the one spot. In the red area, there is soil, and so it also goes right up to the back of the backstop there. Now, in the quotes that they shared with me for the fencing, it's the same amount of funds to be able to go the extra distance, but because they're incorporating part of that backstop, that takes in some of the fencing lineage, which would be the goal. So this evening, I was asked to speak on this for the society, that they would like to request a small adjustment to the original leased area, which is the yellow, and expand it. It's approximately 60 square meters in area, and that would be the red. And this originally came to us, I think it was spring of 2023 of this council, where a resolution was made as a pilot project to have this area in yellow, and as the community garden group grew, to be able to extend it down the side of the fence line and the neighbors there, and possibly across the back, but it depends on the popularity and growth. Who knows how fast it will happen, but it's all ALR land. It's very arable and good soil to grow with. A lot of work still obviously needs to be done, whether they do they'll do plots, but at some point in time they will also do accessible raised bed types of gardening as well. So they're asking for the district to consider the extra 60 square feet, I believe it meters in the to be put into the license occupation agreement. And once that is accomplished, then they're very eager to get growing some things. Won't be a full growing project this year, but there's a few things they'd like to grow for a fundraiser this fall, which I'm not at liberty to say what that fundraiser will be, other than I know they've got one planned this month, which will be seedlings and stuff. They do need to do a lot of fundraising to pay for the fencing. So I just wanted to let my colleagues know that this is just an update of what they're doing. Staff has been working with their lead on this to put together a license of agreement, which will be in the agenda package this evening for my colleagues to consider.
Okay, so let's consider questions and concerns at 8B when we tackle it later on.
Sounds good. Thank
Okay.
you.
So council, let's move on to public participation. The community members, you have 4 minutes per person to a maximum of 45 minutes. If so, could you state your name and your street? And Mr. Lowry, there may be some questions from the community, but certainly after that, you can stay for the whole night, but you don't have to. We understand. Okay, that's great. Okay, community. Does anybody have any comments?
Nicole Shukin, Le Bon Road resident. Thank you. I do just have an impromptu question about the spill response report. And I wondered, I was also interested in the map with the cultural and environmental sensitivities. And I just wondered, when there are training exercises like offshore, is there any accommodation for the resident orca population, or how is that sensitivity potentially managed?
Yeah, I might throw that. Al's our base manager, so the stuff in the water that I'm not specifically during training.
Just if you come to the microphone,
Yeah.
just address it this way, and that's the maximum acoustics.
Sounds great.
Great.
I just wanted to clarify, are you speaking directly to training exercises or during a spill? It's kind of the same approach either way. So regardless of whether we're training on the water or we're in an active spill, we have wildlife spotters essentially, or the ability for any of the masters of the vessels who see any type of marine mammal, whether it's sea lions, whales, or anything, or endangered wildlife in terms of birds or anything like that. So we can call an all stop if we think that our operations might intersect or compromise any type of wildlife. Yeah. If it's an actual spill, we'll have designated spotters. If we're doing training, everybody's on the lookout.
Councillor Epp?
I just had a similar question about animals, but who do you call if there are birds or wildlife that have been immersed in the oil and are struggling? So who would look after them?
Yeah, good question. So there is the one thing I should really iterate here is that overall responsibility for a spill, for the cost, for everything goes back to the polluter, the person that caused the spill. So there's the ship owner in this case, and so they have an obligation to manage the wildlife and to howl the wildlife. And typically, I would say 95% of the time, there's an organization that is called upon, but we use that during our exercises, and they work up and down the coast from California up to Alaska, and that's a group called Focus Wildlife. And so we've worked with them, for decades really, and they're the ones that go out and assess the animals and make decisions on whether they're going to be captured and then how best to rehabilitate them. So there is a specialized group that is brought in for that purpose, and their name is Focus Wildlife.
Okay. Any other questions from the community?
Thank you. I'm Anna Hall from Spellman Place. Just a quick question with regard to both weather and your wildlife spotters. Those of us who live in Metchosin are very well aware of what heavy weather can be because we have our prevailing westerly winds that predominate throughout the summer months. So I'm just curious if you can provide a definition as to what heavy weather for your operations is, but also I would like to understand a bit more about your wildlife spotters and what their training and expertise is, because I'm a zoologist and I understand very well the expertise that is required to detect, my dog can find a leaping humpback whale, but in order to detect animals that are exhibiting normal behaviors or even avoidance behaviors, that requires some level of expertise. So I was just wondering if you could speak to that, please. Thank you.
So the first question on the weather limits, Transport Canada does set out a sort of a rough guideline on for equipment being effective, and that would be Beaufort 4 or 5. You start to lose effectiveness because the nature of spill response in Canada relies exclusively on mechanical recovery. There are other ways to tackle an oil spill, dispersants for fire, that are used in other jurisdictions, but in Canada, those tactics are illegal by environment. So we rely exclusively on mechanical recovery. So the booms and the skimmers will lose effectiveness as waves get higher. So Beaufort 4 is kind of the standard. Certainly, as you've seen there, the vessels we have here at Beecher Bay, the offshore supply vessel will know no weather. So it is a very capable vessel to go out in pretty much any weather conditions. As we've seen in the last couple of months, when it's actually had to do backup duty for other export boats. So that's a very weather capable vessel. But in terms of the booms and skimmers, there is a threshold for it. Let's go for it as a rough guideline. But there are bigger booms now that exist, but that is the standard, and that's the standard that I recommend. On the wildlife side, as Kyle was mentioning, in a spill there actually is a DFO marine mammal team that is dedicated to those specific purposes. So those are trained spotters, those are trained responders, they have all the training. WCMRC does not bring that in-house. We would act just like any other vessel in terms of obeying the laws around mammals. So during a spill, there is a dedicated team that is run out of DFO. So that's the answer.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to ask any questions, comments this evening? Okay, if not, we'll say thank you to our guests. No problem. Okay, Council, let's move along to the adoption of the minutes on page 5 of your Council agenda. Thank you. We have the special council meeting of April 24th on page 5. Take adoption.
Move adoption.
Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And then we have the the council meeting of April 28th, where we discussed the pavement management program, Village Square program project.
Move adoption.
Moved by Councillor Epp, seconded by Councillor Shukin. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Great. And then the next is the mayor's report, just very briefly. As you know, as vice chair of the CRD, I'm involved in some of the government nations relationship building this past month, with one of the CRD board priorities being to develop stronger relationship with First Nations built based on trust and mutual respect. We met with the Cosapsan First Nations on March 31st and signed a memorandum of understanding formalizing how we're going to interact, the government to government relationship, how we will engage, and the priorities for the nation. It was a really wonderful event, very quiet and serene, held out in Brentwood Bay, and the nations were very forthcoming, very direct in what their asks were, and it was a mutually respectful meeting. Councillor Epp, Councillor Donaldson, and I and CAO Payette attended the Association of Vancouver Island Coastal Communities Conference, April 11th to the 13th. It was a really interesting meeting. We had many opportunities for networking, meeting our colleagues from across the region, as well as there were some ministers there, and I was able to talk to some of them about our fire hall and our need for improvements there. So those kind of meetings are very important to interact and pass our cards over to the ministers. This is also an opportunity to see democracy in action at the resolution sections. So we had a couple of resolutions going forward. Unfortunately, our fireworks resolution for a province-wide ban on consumer fireworks did not pass. And I think the three of us were all very surprised by the amount of opposition to it. I had no idea there would be so much opposition to this, but it didn't pass. However, the BC Coastal Marine Strategy resolution from Saanich that we supported passed almost unanimously, as did the non-migratory resident Canada geese resolution that we put forward. Also, Dodd Lidstone, our lawyer, was there talking about the electoral reform, the Local Government Act. So that was really interesting conversation. Overall, it was a good conference. Yeah. And then last week I attended the CRD Career Service Recognition. So the CRD was recognizing the employees that had been at the CRD for 20, 25, 30, and even 35 years. I was completely blown away by all of the employees that after 30 and 35 years, they were still going strong and loving their jobs. I noted that Mr. Joel Ussery, who is a former longtime resident of Metchosin, was recognized for his 30 years of service. So when you see Joel out there, congratulate him. And he was noted for his commitment to watershed conservation and protection. So we want to, from council, say congratulations to Joel. And that's my mayor's update. Moving along to page 15. This is item 8B, the Metchosin Grown Society License of Occupation. The project proposal is listed here. Councillor Donaldson has already given her presentation. Questions, comments, concerns? So do you want to reiterate the ask, Councillor Donaldson?
So the ask is to expand the garden area an additional approximately 60 square meters. I don't know the full area of that, but it does allow for it to be more economical to fence and to be able to actually dig into some dirt earlier than what we would be able to do otherwise, because right now there's substantial pea gravel that needs to be remediated.
Councillor Shukud.
Thank you very much, Mayor Little. I'll be supporting this. I think this is a good use of the area, and yeah, very consistent with the designation that it has with ALR land. Just one or two quick points of information from Councillor Donaldson. How many board members are there on the society?
Society needs a minimum of 5 according to BC Societies Act.
Okay.
So there's 5.
Okay. Who's the president?
The president is Dawn Smith. Yes.
Okay, sorry.
We haven't seen her a lot. She's changed jobs. She works for a local farmer. And so she's just changing from that job to another. And so she's been in flux. So our treasurer has actually been taking the lead on a lot of stuff.
Great. And the society's underway with discussions with staff around a license of occupation?
Yes, they are.
Okay, great. Any sense of timelines around when we might see that? Later?
That depends on tonight's decision, actually.
Okay.
I mean, it's that close being signed. It was just that was the request that their executive had was to be able to extend it.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question. So how are we going to keep track of this group? I know that you've been very active with this group. So are you going to be under your agricultural portfolio? Are you going to be the council liaison to this group? Because you're not on the executive, right?
No, I'm not.
Right.
I'm not on any of the other user group executives either.
Right.
So when I took on the role of, when I was successful to take on the role of a councillor, I stepped down as I was involved with the equestrians. So I stepped down. I'm still a member there. I'm not a member of this particular organization at this point, but I've been helping shepherd them through the process. Right. And as we have in the last year or two worked on the agricultural plan, this fits in with the agricultural plan. The farmers I know have expressed a great interest to have things like a food hub, places like that. In the past, we've had farm forums and that. So there is one of their executive actually is on the Agricultural Advisory Select Committee. So there's a marrying of exchange of information and lots of learning and conversations that have been going on for several months. So I'm hoping to continue fostering that. And at a time when, we're hearing more and more about food security on the island and now with the tariffs and that sort of stuff, as well in my role as the liaison for agriculture, have written a number of articles for the news, and there'll be another one coming up in a couple of months for others to see as well. So far and wide, we're trying to, everybody, including this group, be able to educate the public and welcome people to be involved as members of the organization. So the key is just getting started. They've gone out and done a couple of tours of some other community gardens to see how they're set up visually, to have an idea, and trials and tribulations of how others started as well. And they're hoping to continue doing that. So they too recognize that there is a lot to learn, but working with other people in Metchosin that are already farming, gardening, that sort of stuff. So,
right. Yeah. And in annexing other little bit of land, are you displacing anybody? I don't suppose so, but
currently we're not displacing anyone other than maybe there were some sort of pollinators living in those bushes. I'm not sure.
Geese.
Yeah, well, that's the part of getting fencing and then some overhead screens or something. I'm not really sure. More to come on that because the geese resolution I was to present at ABIC, but will be presenting at UBCM. But yeah, that and rabbits will, and dogs and humans. That's hence the fence to keep it secure.
okay. Any other questions? Councillor Gray and then Councillor App.
Just along the lines of your question, Mayor Little, I'd be happy to put forward a motion that Councillor Donaldson be the liaison with the Metchosin Growing Society for Council.
I'm not sure if we need that because it comes under your agricultural portfolio, but
Well,
it doesn't
either
hurt.
that or the user group under Councillor Shukin.
Yeah, it probably should be under, with respect, Councillor Shukin, it should be in the agricultural portfolio. So if you want to put forward that motion, that's fine.
Sure, I'll move that Councillor Donaldson be our council liaison to the Metchosin Growing Society.
Okay, this is moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Shukin. Comments? Is that okay with you?
Yeah, I just have one comment, and that is the farmers market is also something that I've sort of overseen as the liaison with agricultural committee. However, in doing so, Councillor Shukin has been kind enough to involve me in the grounds group meetings as well, and they've been invited. So I kind of sit on the sidelines unless I'm prompted to communicate. But it would be great to offer them an invite to the next grounds meeting. Now that they'll be, hopefully, will be, accepted and established with the license.
AC. Okay. Anybody else have any comments? Okay, so we haven't put a motion on the floor, have we?
Yeah.
Oh, we have. Okay, so this is for the liaison. Okay, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, I'll call the question on Councillor Donaldson, be the liaison. All in favor? That's unanimous. Great. Thank you. Okay, now on the main thing that we're talking about here is the additional land for the license of occupation. This would be no added expense to the organization because the fencing, the cost of the fencing is the same for the smaller piece or the larger piece, and they would be able to have some arable land to actually use.
Mayor Little, I would move that council consider extending the leased area for the Metchosin Growing Society at Metchosin School by an additional 60 square meters of space to include as Schedule A to the license of occupation. So,
This is moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Comments? Councillor Gray.
I think it's a great idea, getting the community garden going. I just wondered, there's 5 members of the executive, and is that the limit? Is that the number of people in membership of the group at the moment?
I don't have access to their membership, so I'm not sure where they're at with how many people. Membership is definitely open, so anybody that's interested, I can get them in contact with their membership person.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you for that.
thank you.
Next, on page 17, we have a report from staff. This is the MIABC Service Provider Agreement, Metchosin Community Day. I'm going to ask our Deputy Corporate Officer, Ms. Hanson, to take us through this. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this agreement is coming forward again this year to provide the Metchosin Community Day insurance coverage through our liability insurance with MIABC. And because it's an annual event, MIABC have suggested that we sign a service provider agreement on a perpetual basis this year. So we don't have to do it again if this is approved by council. And there's just a couple of financial implications that council should be aware of, same as last year. There's an annual premium of approximately $350. The district would be responsible for paying any claims under its deductible, and any claims against the associate member may adversely impact the district's liability premiums. So once if council agrees to the service provider agreement, we just have to send in a council resolution along with the signed agreement, and then pay them the additional membership fee. That's it. Happy to answer questions.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we have the Metchosin Community Day every year. It's prudent and wise to have insurance. Actually, it's not even an option. We have to have the insurance. Does council have any comments or questions? Councillor Shukin.
I do have a comment. I want to just pass on thanks to Ms. Hanson for coordinating this, because I understand there was a sudden, realization or a change of situation last year. So there was a scramble to get a fix and get a solution, and Ms. Hanson was instrumental in doing that, and so we were under a much more controlled situation this year with this. One thing I just want to ask Ms. Hanson, if I could, through you, Mayor Little, if you look down service provider agreement, and it states kind of what it is, the activities that will be covered as part of Metchosin Community Day. I feel like there might be two more that we could add, and and subject to Ms. Hanson's views on this. One might be parking, and then one might be just even a statement like staging the event, like the actual execution of the event during the day of. Because it talks a lot about, some of the preliminary work and some of the specifics like contest, the barbecue dinner, setup and takedown, but the actual staging of the event may be a good way of phrasing it, and parking. Maybe I can ask through you, Mayor Little, Ms. Hanson's thoughts on that?
Through the chair, I can confirm with MIA, and
Okay.
We can add those, if they agree.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it should be okay.
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 Great.
Any other comments, questions? Councillor Donaldson.
Just for clarity on, just following up with Councillor Shukin is saying staging. So it takes more than a day to put this on. So there's organizers and people setting up stuff the day before. Is this insurance covering the day before as well? Or I don't know how many days in advance, but clearly it's not just the one day, I wouldn't think. Through you to maybe Ms. Hanson.
Okay, Ms. Hanson.
Through the chair. It's for the entire event. MIA are quite clear on that it's quite a large event, and the number of people. We had quite a long discussion back and forth last year.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay, Councillor.
Yeah, I also appreciate all the work that went into doing this. I know it was quite a schmozzle last year, and also the fact that it's we can do it in a perpetual manner, so everybody doesn't have to worry about it every year. And with that, I will recommend that Council approve the MIABC Service Provider Agreement between the District of Metchosin and the Metchosin Community Committee, with the term of being on a perpetual basis.
This is moved by Councillor Epp, seconded by Councillor Gray. Any comments? Nope. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Ms. Hanson, for your work. And we have some reports for information starting on page 23. This is the District of Metchosin, Maturing Metchosin Resilience Planning Final Report, March 17, 2025. This is for receipt. It is a very big report with many examples of vulnerable community members, as well as ideas and pathways. I'm wondering, Fire Chief, would you be able to introduce this for us?
Sure, thank you very much. This grant was originally initiated on the premise that a lot of responders have responded to people who are have property but don't have any income, and seen a lot of gaps there with health or the government or funding, and not having any support there for these people. So we saw this grant and thought maybe we could bring somebody in, a consultant, to come in and take a look at lived experiences, knowing better what the actual the health authority provides, the province and federal, if there's any resources out there, and kind of just help us come up with some ideas on how we might be able to fill some of these gaps. And that was the intent of this particular consultant coming in. And yes, it was under the poverty reduction, but that's really, it's looking at different vulnerabilities within communities. And for us, it happened to be typically more the seniors under the, falling underneath I hate to call it the poverty level, but a low or reduced income. So that's what the consultant came in and spent a lot of time trying to connect with people throughout this community and Chianu as well. And these are just some of the results and recommendations that she actually put together, or they actually put together, many of which we already do. And a great example is like the soup kitchen the MCA puts on, and some of the other, Seniors Resource Center. So, I mean, if anything, I think what it did is while it didn't give a lot of direction to fill gaps, it did kind of reaffirm that, Metchosin's already doing a great job supporting the seniors as best they can. And also to give us another lens too, and to, appreciate the fact that when we start talking about taxes and increases and all that, you know what, here's, we've gone around and done a good job looking at people, and we, to be considerate. It's just another lens to look through, I think.
Okay. Councillor, in Victoria, they're talking a lot about the homeless population, but the fire chief has often said we have a problem with people precariously housed, precariously on these big lots with limited income and limited access to resources. Do you have any specific comments about the report itself, or anything? Go ahead, Councillor Donaldson, then Shukin.
Okay, great. I found the report interesting. Some of the material is what I've seen in other consultants' reports that we've seen over the last few years. So they're, interesting to see them overlapping. I was curious that there was only 34 participants. Having said that, as I read further, there was percentages given as to some other levels of population that were affected for a variety of reasons. But as the chief has just said, I felt it was very affirming. The things that there were sections throughout the report that would say what Metchosin could do, and when I read it, it was like what Metchosin is or has done is what I saw. Is we're encouraging people to shop locally, whether it's buying from your local farmers or the little commercial entity that we do have here in the village. I know people who will actually go to Tony's store to get plumbing supplies instead of traveling all the way over to, say, Sleggs, because their local staff can work on things. And I guess I'm speaking from the agricultural sector mostly, but or other people as well that are doing work on their property to keep these little businesses afloat. And so people who are working from home, we have a lot of home-based businesses in Metchosin, or businesses operating out of their properties, that sort of thing. Clearly MCA is doing some various service work. They have the adult care people that come in from Wanafuka twice a week for a number of years. So that's also supporting seniors. CERC is doing the aging in place, lots of educational presentation and workshops, not just for seniors, but opening that up. More to come on that, obviously, as well. I know even at this table, we've gone to both AVEG and UBCM and discussed here openly about things such as free transportation for seniors or youth. And that, so there's, the Village Initiative, we've got an event coming up, actually, I'm not sure anybody here is going, I know I am, on Thursday. And that's, they're doing some really exciting things, the Foundry for West Shore, that's doesn't exclude Metchosin, we're a region, West Shore is a region. So more and more of those things coming out. Reimagine's another one that's been working in partnership here with the district. So it was affirming to know that we are doing things, and some things maybe we could be doing, but we certainly, as you were saying in your mayor's update, Mayor Little, just networking with our regional partners and across the island as well. Learning what other small communities are working with gives us some insight. So good to see a report where it's affirmative things we are doing, and yes, some things to consider in the future perhaps too. Thank you.
Councillor Shukin.
I have nothing more to add. Councillor Donaldson covered it very well, actually. I would move that Council receive the report by Resilience Planning Limited titled District of Metchosin, Maturing Metchosin, final report dated March 17th, 2025. Receive for information, and so moved.
Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Epp. Comments? I just want a quick question for the fire chief. When you're meeting with some of the people that we've been discussing this evening, are they linked to the pod system? usually?
Thank you. Honestly, I don't know 100% because I wasn't, this was the consultant actually reached out to a lot of these people one-on-one. But some of the people that they did connect with was actually through a pod event that we had. So I can't give you a 100% accurate response to that, but I know there were definitely some part that have been involved with the pods.
Okay. Any other questions before we move for seat? No. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much, Fire Chief, for bringing this forward. Okay. We have next the West Shore Parks and Recreation Report. This is from Grant Brown, the administrator. This is the April 2025 progress report on the master plan. Councillor Donaldson, could you walk us through this?
Sure. So it was cited, I think last fall, to have a master plan done for the whole of West Shore, because the West Shore Parks and Recreation Society site and organization is at their capacity. And because we're growing specifically in the urban area so much in population, we're looking at different, and they've already started with some satellite areas for recreation, but wanting to hear from the public, and not just the public like us and the residents, but the council, the board members of West Shore Parks and Recreation, some input as to what they would like to see in, throughout the region. And so we had the second phase of engagement is coming to completion. They've done different things with surveys, workshops, different meetings that they've gone and done some one-on-one engagement with. The finality of the final part of this will be, I think, later this year. So there's a few more steps to go through. At this time, it was a $140,000 budget. They've spent approximately $60,000 to date, I believe. So this is just an update of where we're at so far, finishing the second phase. And yeah, so this is just a report from Mr. Brown, who's the CAO of West Shore Parks and Rec, on the board in which I've been assigned.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Councillor Donaldson or others regarding the master plan and the update? If not, I'll take a motion to receive.
I'll just say that I appreciated one of the findings, a high degree of satisfaction with the West Shore Parks and Rec services. So that's nice to read. I'll move receipt.
Moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Shukin. Any other comments? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you for that. Next, we have the Metchosin Building Inspection Department report, permit revenue year to date for 2025. Looks like the permits are up slightly compared to 2024. And there's some other metrics down below for your perusal.
I'll move receipt.
Moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And then next we have the District of Metchosin Public Communication Report Statistics. So any calls that come into the district are logged, and this is what we call the Public Communication Reports. And these are the stats along here. And you can see that we continue to receive correspondence regarding roads, land use, and miscellaneous. Yeah.
So I'll move receipt. I just had a comment to say that it's interesting that year to date we have more bylaw enforcement, 50% more bylaw enforcement for land use issues. So we can keep an eye on that, I guess, as we proceed through the year.
Okay. So this is a motion to receive from Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Shukin. Anybody else? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And we have some correspondence for information. This is regarding, this is from the UBCM president. Trish wrote to us regarding our non-migratory resident Canada geese resolution, and that was passed. It was endorsed by the collective body. Okay. Is that it? I think it is.
I guess a motion to receive?
Oh, yeah, motion
So
to
moved.
receive from Councillor Grace, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor? Opposed, carried. Great. We have no bylaws, no other business, but we have time for questions. Does anybody in the community have any questions for us? Now is the time. No? Okay. I'll take a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Epp. All in favor? Opposed, carried. Yeah, thank you, everybody. Good night.